Welcome to Peaking. I'm joined with Fred Stacey, CEO of Cloud Tech Gurus. Fred, happy Friday. How is it going?
Happy Friday, man. It's always good.
Absolutely. You just got back from Vegas, is that right?
I did, sir. Yes.
How was that?
Uh, you know, it was a channel partners event, so those are always good to get time with our partners, our suppliers. But I hate Vegas. I absolutely hate Vegas.
I kind of agree with you. You go there a few times, you have a great time your first couple times, then every time you come back and say, why am I here again? I never want to come back.
Yeah, you start noticing the little details, the dirtiness of the town. They after you've been there, I've been there well over 100 times. Um,
Wow.
well, I mean, on average, three events a year are in Vegas. In our industry at least, and so yeah, over a 30-year career, I've been there a few times, and I hate it.
Why do they always select Vegas? Is that the only who's
Yeah.
organizing this?
Well, I mean, you've got Nashville, you've got Orlando. There are other places that people try to put on events. It just seems like Vegas, everybody can get there easily. It used to be cheap, to fly in, to stay. Not that way anymore, man. I think Vegas has lost its luster, but people still keep picking it.
See if you can lobby them to choose Denver. But Denver's not a lot cleaner. We need to we need to clean up our act before we start lobbying for.
We need to get our stuff together, man. It's I'm lucky I'm in Parker. I don't have much to complain about here. But yeah, Denver proper. And we need to do some work.
I agree. I am in the thick of it. We moved into a pretty rough neighborhood and we see the impact of it. We see it's all the trouble. We actually have I'm almost 100% sure of it, a stolen vehicle parked outside of our house right now. Never seen the vehicle before. It has no plates. It's a Chevy Tahoe, early 2000s, without a front driver's side door handle. So almost 100% sure it's a stolen vehicle that they just dumped in front of our house. And a Chevy Tahoe is one of the prime targets. There's the Kia Sportage that's a prime target for stealing, and the older Chevy Tahoes. My brother-in-law has one, and it's been broken into like 6 times near just a few blocks down from us. He finally installed a security system that won't let it start without the key present because it was stolen, and then they found it with a bullet in the front seat. He got the security system installed, and now they just break into it and try to start it. So even though they can't steal it, they still do incredible damage breaking into it and just messing up the key. So I'm almost 100% sure this Tahoe up front is also a stolen vehicle. When we decided to move here, we actually just came on a random weekend, and we were going to look at houses. So I was in contact with a agent, and he had a few that we would visit. And then my wife is very into houses. She's in architecture, and she was on Zillow looking at all these, so she sent a few over. And what we would do when we entered a neighborhood is go +1 if we saw people walking their dogs or running or just walking at all, and we go -1 if we saw a vagrant or any signs of crime or like things that you wouldn't want to live around. And when we scootered to our house, we got up to like +14. It was like, okay, this is a good neighborhood. A lot of people walking around. Seems to be good. And it's a little rough. It's a little rough. I think we probably should have chosen Parker.
Yeah, I agree.
I did have a wonderful Castle Rock experience, though. We talked about that briefly
Yeah, yeah,
already, but I think there's a lot of towns in Colorado that would be absolutely wonderful to live in. That's what we decided. We like Denver, but we love Colorado.
yeah,
And so if
yeah.
I'm
I'm with you.
advocating people move here, I do advise the cities surrounding Denver. You can get your city fix when you need to, but you're not buried in it. All right. Talk to me about your career. How did it start? Obviously, you're in call center now. You've served basically every position in the industry. How did that start?
So I was stacking doors in a manufacturing plant in small town Iowa, and I got my hand caught in a roller system. Yeah, so literally picking up a door, a cork-filled door, putting it on a conveyor belt, and my gloves that day were a little bit loose, and it caught my hand and pulled it in. Didn't do any like serious like long-term damage, but it was painful. I had to go to a doctor, yada yada. And I grew up in a farm and working, my entire life, so physical labor was not it was not unknown to me, but it became quickly obvious after that event that I didn't want to do that, but I needed to work. So I found a job at a call center, and got on the phones as an agent, and started actually on the phones, back in the old long distance days, and quickly realized, I found out I was pretty good at it. But then I got an opportunity to train some people, because I was good at it. And I realized I love that, which led into a trainer's position, which led into a leadership position. And then eventually I grew to help companies start new centers around the country. And then I met my mentor, had bought their software and their server, and we ended up getting caught up in a in the WorldCom debacle, and I had to return their server, and interviewed with him, who was the CEO at this software company, and pretty much told me he wanted to hire me on the spot, but didn't know what he was gonna have me do. And ended up taking on the training department for the software company, really small. 20, I think I was like the 28th person over a 5-year period. We grew to 60 million, fastest growing in the industry. I ended up going through multiple roles in the software side as well. And we ended up running Europe, Middle East, and Asia, travel the world, putting in and selling and supporting software and hardware in the old call center days. And just fell in love with software and hardware, quite frankly. It was always fascinating back then. We had telephony boards inside 4U servers. So it wasn't cloud based, it wasn't even hosted yet. We hadn't even gotten there yet. All Windows based servers. So you're sticking them in the rack, plugging them in, to this may sound a little weird to the audience that doesn't know this stuff, but phone lines used to be, we call them twisted pair, because they were two actual two wires inside that were then twisted with a bunch of smaller wires underneath it, right? So the telephony servers would run to a punch down block, which then ran to twisted pair, normal phone lines out to the agent stations. So everything back when I started was, well, I mean, when I really started, it was green screen. So if that doesn't age me, but anyways, I fell in love with the whole thing. I always the hardware piece and the software piece kind of came natural. I wasn't educated in it at all. Didn't have any background. My school had a computer room, and we still had those old Apple. What were they? The Commodores on the carts. In our library as well. So I didn't grow up around. Nor was I professionally taught any of this stuff. I just learned as we went, and yeah, I mean, so from there, yeah, my career just grew. I was always willing to do what was necessary, no matter what, and took the chances and moved around the country, took the next best opportunity. Always felt like I had something to prove. But yeah, man, I mean, you got a little more than just where I started. I mean, but
No, it's good stuff.
yeah.
What did the early days look like? I think when I think of really old call center days, you see that room full of women with the boards where they're plugging in the wires into the holes, and okay, we're gonna get you over to whatever, maybe in the war movies and stuff like that.
That's switchboard. Call centers. So originally, a lot of them were actual physical phones with a bunch of desks, like long desks, and people, smoking right in the right on the floor, picking up the phone, dialing off of, either cards, were actually printed sheets with phone numbers on them. When telephony became automated and they started bringing computer systems, the green screen, that actually brought a new layer of efficiency. And that's really where I hit. Although I saw some of those old boiler rooms, if you remember the old movie Boiler Room,
I've seen that. Yep.
yeah,
Been a
yeah,
while, but I've seen it.
yeah. I mean,
My
that's
first boss
I,
enforced watching that.
yeah, yeah. There's some great movies around that. Closers get coffee, right?
Yes.
But I mean, we were in the transition when I got into the computerized call centers, and so they were. You started to see cubicles come in, like small. We call them quarter cubes. Where basically your head barely crosses the top of it. And the machines were hardwired, like I said, through twisted pair right to the desktop, into a box. And then there was a computer screen that was a green screen that you tabbed around, no mouse. And oftentimes, some of the more advanced stuff had some verbiage scripting, and you had some fields you could fill in. That was what it was like, man. It was um it's a tough job. Not a lot of it's still even to this day, we still have tremendous turnover in this industry at the agent level. But it's not all that different today. The funny part is the fundamentals are still there. It's about people. Being able to pick up a phone. And today it's chat, it's SMS, it's social media. All these things are interconnected. But back then it was pretty much the same. People came in, hopped on the phones, logged into a system, either made their dials if they were doing outbound or took the inbound calls as they came in. And
So,
so
how behind would someone be if they had the technology that you started your career with today? How much? Because billions of dollars have flowed into this industry, undoubtedly.
the billions, trillions. I mean, over that period of time, it's been enormous. How far would they be behind? Well, 30 years. I mean, 30 plus
But
years as
the
far as
customer experience, how
technology.
different would the customer experience be?
Uh, yeah, I mean, that's so different today. There's no such thing as self-service, right? You had to call if you had any problems. There was no way really other than the paper that you got in the mail, your bill, your invoice, your contract. There's no way to find those numbers. I mean, the experience was entirely different, but the volume was different too because people didn't have accessibility to, just randomly pick up the phone, or click a button and text and chat. So the volumes were different, but the experience for a lot of consumers, I'd say back then it was probably better because there was less noise, there were less products, there was less reason to call. You went to your local Sears, hardware if you had a problem with your washing machine. The mechanic would come out and fix it and it'd be done. There wasn't a lot of complexity back then. So I'd say different world. It's hard to compare to the experience of today's individuals versus back then. I mean, think about it. Computers became mainstream. The personal piece computer was developed. Now smart device. I mean, we're so far past any of that. But yet the fundamentals have not changed. You still have to pick up a phone, talk to your customer, deliver a great experience. Um, you know, the baseline hasn't changed. It's just all the technology wrapped around it and the noise and the volumes have all changed.
Days we would go there. I don't know if we ever called a mechanic in, but even like 30 years later, I would still have my washer, dryer, fridge. I have no idea what to do if anything goes wrong with those. I don't know who I'd call. I think initially you just go YouTube, you like look it up, and the self-service like you talked about. Yeah, that was obviously not available. No one's reading the manual. It's,
Yeah, but we certainly also didn't have to worry about switching out filters in your fridge because you're getting water and ice out of your fridge. There's so many things that have changed. Things were just built different back then, and I know you hear this from us older folks, but it's the truth. Things lasted a long time. Every once in a while, I'll go back home to Iowa where I grew up. And there'll be an old farmer that, we know that has, a 50-year-old fridge in his garage that still works. I mean, yeah, things were built different. Life was not um, disposable. The products were built to last forever. And yeah. So, anyways,
You want to think that it's because maybe things were made overseas now and manufactured elsewhere, and not that the corporates realized that if they could get you to get a new one every 4 or 5 to 10 years, that's much more profitable than having one that lasts 60 years. I think I just somehow came across a YouTube video of a fridge that was like 70 years old, and they, you know, drag these things because they take so much power, and the guy plugs in a power meter, and it's exactly what his new fridge takes. It's like there's absolutely nothing wrong with it.
right. Plus, the new fridge probably has, some kind of connectivity, and that's taking additional power and to run the Wi-Fi, and I mean,
A Wi-Fi connected fridge is crazy. I miss me on that. No thanks.
you don't want your fridge telling you when your milk might be bad. I mean,
That's out of control. Yeah, that touchscreen fridges, I've seen all that's just crazy. You do not, and the transparent like camera inside that you can see what's in it from the outside. It's like we don't need that. Let's innovate elsewhere. All we need is the fridge to keep the food cold. That is not where we need innovation.
yeah, but again, back to the consumerism, right? I mean, this things things have changed. And it is, they've realized that, we will buy stuff, and because of funding and credit cards and all the changes in the dynamics, the way money is available, um, you know, this consumer culture that we have here is, it's what we have. That
Yep.
isn't going away anytime soon.
Nope. Yep. And it drives the world economy, so they love it.
And it does.
So when you joined, was call center typically outsourced? Like you would give your support operations to a call center company, the agents, or was everything internal?
Yeah, that's often a misnomer. Even today, a lot of call centers are still internal. Now, whether the company has opened their own internal operations in another country now, that's very much, especially as you get larger, that's possible. Outsourcing still is a major part of the contact center industry, no doubt. But back then, you would outsource, but a lot of it was domestic. Telephony wasn't the same. Yeah, we didn't have SIP or any of the modern forms or VoIP even yet. So everything had to be hardwired. You still had T1s, without even a digital, we call it the D channel. So T1s were, it was straight traditional PSTNs. So a lot of it, even if you did outsource, it would be domestic here in the US. So it wasn't really until, gosh, 20, 30, 20, 25 years ago where people started exploring the idea of, hey, what if we outsourced and sent our calls somewhere else? But yeah, I mean, for the most part, most companies owned their own contact center.
And so there would be a leader and a whole team that would be in a building owned by that company or at least by that company. Not is there such thing as kind of call centers that are somewhat outsourced, but they have teams within that another company could kind of own a certain department or a certain amount of people within that call center, but the trainers, I guess that would be kind of outsourced.
Yeah, I mean most outsourced centers, if you once you get to a certain size, there's something called shared or dedicated. It's much like
Yeah.
development teams. I mean, you come
Yeah.
from Silicon Valley.
Yep.
You can get dedicated teams, on your project with project managers and, even product leads. Although more often than not, most software companies we own the product development team, or the lead team, right? But contact centers are just like that. When you outsource, likely if you've got 10 plus agents, 15, let's call it, you're going to have a dedicated team, so you'll have trainers, you'll have your own team involved with outsourcing. It's all part of, um, really making sure that the internal team, the company team, works really well and partners with the outsourcer. And that's really about, finding the right outsourcer, right? Which is one of the things we do in at Cloud Tech Gurus. It's matching vertical, matching, project campaign success, languages, all the things that come with modern outsourcing.
You started at the bottom as an agent, now a CEO. Have you been in board meetings or executive meetings where you see someone that without that agent level experience missing things?
All the time. Absolutely, all the time, especially in software. On the software side of the business, that was one of my big advantages. That's what allowed me to, I think, grow in my careers, because I understood, when you're selling software to a client, to know your customer and know all the challenges of, what they go through on a day to day, and really be able to speak their language is such an advantage. So once I got pulled into the software side, I realized that all that time as an agent, supervisor, manager, trainer, all the things I learned, building centers, and putting the actual technology that we were selling into centers. It was so invaluable. But yeah, absolutely. And the board meetings, people would talk about, well, why aren't we implementing this technology within, why can't we get to cash, for a software term? Why can't we get to cash within, less time? What would it take to make this faster? Not understanding that, you're obviously switching an entire group of humans. You're then training and onboarding, not to mention all the technology changes and shifts, and proper change management. You shouldn't, they just didn't understand the day to day. They didn't understand why you couldn't get, an executive leader who's got a call center to run, out of their office for 3 days to to a conference, or, running a center is it's basically like putting out fires every minute of every day your whole life. It is the toughest job, I know I've ever worked. Yeah, working 18 hours in software is nothing compared to 18 hours trying to run, two shifts on a call center floor. So yeah, I mean, I've seen it all. Seen CEOs brought in from, enormous software companies to run contact center related technology software companies, and be completely clueless of what the buyer experience, or, what it was like in their day to day life. And they go to try to talk to, a decision making team, and, they just fumble all over it, not speaking their language, not understanding their real pain points. And then, yeah, I mean, so yeah, you can imagine, I've seen it all.
How much of that experience and you coming through have do you attribute your success to? You think without that experience you'd still be where you are? You think it played a extremely large part of it?
Yeah. I mean, there are two things. One, without that experience, I wouldn't be anywhere near where I'm at today. And then secondarily is my mentors. Over the years, I've had a lot of mentors that, whether, and never did I ask for a person to be my mentor, right? It was never like that. But those mentors, really are what kind of drove me, to want to get better. And I've always had this natural kind of thing, of needing to be better and needing to improve. But they really accelerated that learning. And yeah, I mean, those are the two things that, without those two things, I wouldn't be anywhere near where I'm at. I'd probably be still in Iowa, working physical labor of some kind, and, yeah, I mean, not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just, it was never a life meant for me. Um, mm, so
A corn shucker? Do you shuck corn?
Anymore, man. I mean, that stuff we stopped doing that a long time ago. But I did detasseling corn. I walked beans. I baled hay. Scooped hog barns. I did all that stuff. My first 18-hour day was at 13 years old, out on a hay rack. So
Wow.
yeah, you
Bales of hay
learn.
are heavy. I've done that a little bit. That is not easy.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't give it up. Learning that kind of life and the work ethic and just the culture of whether you like it or not, whether you're sick or not, stuff needs to get done. The hogs need fed. I mean, it's there's a lot of value in that, especially today.
But
I
yeah,
mean, I find that today just having a greater work ethic and the ability to just, power through things are probably the biggest differentiator when it comes to entrepreneurship and success in leading in an organization because you set the standard, right?
literally any type of success as an employee or any, like there's so many people that don't know how to work. It's just it's a means to an end. They want the paycheck and they'll do the bare minimum, but working hard is not something they're interested in or something that they've necessarily done. And you put a little bit of pressure on some people and it doesn't work. And it's not like toxic leadership, it's not all these newfound, it's just any type of direction or deadline or pressure. And I've seen a lot of people just not be able to handle that. And I do strongly advocate people in college now. I'm part of this alumni group for our college, and anytime I talk to them, it's like get a college job and learn some of these jobs that you don't want. Like having a job you hate is a very good thing to do when you're young. You really need to experience the suck, the hurt, and it makes you so
Embrace
much
it.
better off. I couldn't
Yeah,
agree more.
and embrace it, right? I mean, that's life sometimes sucks. I mean, stuff happens. You will deal with it. Yeah, things are just going to go wrong throughout your life, right? I mean, that's just the reality of it. Embrace it. Yeah, I'm with you. People need to learn how to work. I wish, it's the one thing with raising my kids. I wish I would have had the farm family still that I could have said, hey, go spend a summer, you know, go bale hay, for 18 hours in a day, for like, even if it's 3 weeks. I mean, it doesn't take long of a couple of 18-hour days in a row for you to realize that this sucks, but I got to do it. And yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the one thing I do regret is I never had that farm to send the kids to really work. I mean, like really work. Although they both turned out amazing. So, I have nothing to complain about. My kids are awesome.
That's good. Yeah, my we didn't live on a farm. We always were in suburbs, but my dad was always working on projects, and I have 8 siblings, huge family, and he would always do projects. And some reason I don't know what it was, but I enjoyed working on them, and nobody else did. But I do have a few younger brothers with tremendous work ethics, and one of them he moves furniture in Arizona. He's like 22 or 21, so young guy, and he's moving furniture in the Arizona heat, and he's just embracing it. And moving furniture is not a glamorous job, but we're all impressed. It's like that's incredible. You're learning extremely valuable lessons for when you get to, a career where you are going to be growing. You're going to have something that a lot of people don't. And I
I
think there
don't,
is a lot of trash talked about my generation and the current generation about that type of work ethic, and it's not there's no foundation. There is a foundation behind it. There's a reason for it. I definitely have recognized that.
I mean, you guys grew up connected, right? I mean, what would any of us be like if we were the second we came out and got into school, we started using devices and everything was, built on algorithms and instantaneous gratification. And, I mean, the human mind is not meant, we've not evolved for this stuff, right? I mean, we just haven't. So uh, there's, I agree absolutely. I mean, what your brother's doing. I mean, first of all, I've been, moved some people, in my life. I don't do it anymore. I offer to pay for the movers, right?
Yes.
I'll help you out. I'll give you some money because I ain't lifting. I spend 5 days a week consistently in the gym lifting weights. So everybody assumes I'm going to be all right lifting their furniture. I'm like, look, functional versus gym is two
Different.
totally different things. I am not a mover. I'm too old. Let me help you.
It is
Um,
hard. Yeah, that's
but you find it. What I find amusing is there's also a lot of people that still look down on labor jobs, and in reality, the robots are a ways away. That's there's jobs like right now, some of the best multiples you can get are HVAC and plumbing companies doing roll ups, and then selling those. I mean, it's people are missing the boat if they're sleeping on those types of things, and movers are always going to be necessary until you can automatically pack up a house with robots or some kind of automation and have it shipped across the country. Those things are going to be necessary, and they make more money. I've got a guy I work out with at the gym every once in a while. He owns a moving company. He does well.
yeah, they
So
charge a lot. That's one of life's greatest luxuries is when you can afford a moving company. Like wealth, I've heard, I haven't experienced wealth, but or relatively to wealthy Americans, but it kind of the benefits might stop when you can get to a restaurant and just eat whatever you want and you don't have to think about the price. But that would be another benchmark when you can pay for movers. That's a tough one. All right,
well,
let's jump to
when
cloud tech. So what's the story with cloud tech gurus? Where did your journey start with them? And yeah, let's
so
just
I've
start there.
known Yeah, I've known the founders for a while. Well, one of them in particular for a really long time. When he first came into the call center space, he randomly called me out of the blue one day. His name is Darren Prine, and he calls me up, and I don't know this guy, but he got my number from somebody that said he should talk to me about call centers because I had already been in the game and look for a little while, and I just picked up the phone and it started asking me smart questions. I was like, I like this guy, so we both have been in the industry for a long time, and I've watched him grow and mature, and eventually him and his partners started the company, and they were doing really, really well. Because they're all, sales or sales oriented, and the organization is well designed. They were all willing to work their butts off to get it done. But they got to a point where, they had grown so much, but they wanted to bring in an operator or somebody to help kind of take the company to the next level. I happened to be catching up with Darren, and we were talking about, I was talking to software companies about joining at C level. None of them were CEO roles though. And I've always known that, eventually through my path through, running international groups and becoming a COO and, running sales. And I always knew CEO was eventually going to come. So even though I swore I would never do a bootstrap again, I swore off any bootstraps. Darren did what he did best, which was sell me on the idea that I needed to join them. So last year in January, I joined Cloud Tech Gurus as the CEO, and been having a blast, having so much fun with these guys and growing this company. So yeah, I mean that's the history, kind of synopsis, I guess.
What is your offering? What are you kind of targeting? What are you guys uh, mostly services?
No. A lot of people don't understand the telecom channel, the TSDs. We're technically called a TSD or TSB, depending on how you want to describe us, but that's a technology services distributor or broker. So we actually have about 150 contact center related technology companies in our portfolio, and 50 BPOs. And what we do is we sit in between the buyers, the sellers, and our gurus, which we call consultants, who are helping the buyers actually understand which products they should be looking at, evaluating, helping them through the process of discovery, and assessment, and then selection. And again, like a broker, we get commissioned on the back end, for the sale of this software or services. Now, one of the things we have recently done is come to market with a whole AI readiness offering. I about 14 years ago, I got my first real involvement with machine learning. Tried to bring a supervised learning based chatbot to market, and also learned my first lesson about being too early to market, uh, and how expensive and painful it can be. But I knew at that point in time when I saw what they could do with machine learning just at that level 14 years ago, I knew that the world was going to change. So AI, artificial intelligence and machine learning has been a part of, what I always knew would be, yeah, the eventual outcome for contact centers. And here we are, thanks to, November 22 and ChatGPT launch. I think the world woke up and realized that not only is it absolutely the where the world should be heading, but it's also viable now. We've had like natural language understanding, natural language processing. We've had that stuff around for a long time. I mean, artificial intelligence is not new. This is actually a pretty old concept, older than me for sure. Yeah, so we launched an AI readiness offering to the market because there's a big gap between, there's a lot of point solutions which we help clients select, but those point solutions solve, individual, like sometimes channel, sometimes, some are customer facing, some are agent facing, but companies in today's world need to get ready for what I call AI enablement, which is, across the board, every division, department, anything you do in a company will have artificial intelligence touching it. It's just a matter of time, but most of them don't have a clue what to do with it. They don't even know where to start. So providing, maturity assessments and full 360 roadmap consulting, is in my opinion, is absolutely necessary to move us to fill that gap, to move us from where we were, 5 years ago, let's call it, before Google made their transformer, you know, document or did what was it? It was like a email post. I don't remember exactly how they announced it, but when they really announced transformers, that's where the world started to shift. And then, OpenAI came out with ChatGPT, and the rest is, history. Um, but there's a big gap between most companies to where they are today to where they need to be in order to really prepare for that next iteration. And it's not just about the product, right? It's we always talk about people, process, and technology, and in that order. Proper change management, data governance policies, and then of course all the IT infrastructure, normalizing and structuring data, making sure that you understand, what's being used, what's being passed out through the open internet, what's being, secured in the back end, what's your training data, what's good data to train on, and all that. There's a million things that you need to understand as a company moving forward and prepare for, to really get to that next level. So, yeah, that's a long-winded answer to we sit in between a lot of deals in the contact center and customer experience market, and try to bring as much value as we can to the people out there buying it. Because it's tough. What used to be a couple of handfuls of providers of call center related technology is now thousands and thousands of providers of every different type, from point solutions to whole, there's something called CCaaS, contact center as a service, which is a full, omni-channel platform, these enormous platform, very similar in the functionality depth as a CRM. So you could imagine pretty complex.
When does a company need what you offer? When do they realize that themselves? Is that something that you have to coach them and let them know? It's like you should have some guidance here.
Yeah, the idea of a trusted advisor, consulting firm, that's nothing new, right? I mean, companies have been going to, the top five consulting firms for years for contact center practice recommendations. What's really changed with companies like ours and kind of the evolution of the channel is there are a lot of people out there that are smaller organizations that won't charge, $1 million to get the what we call the Gartner Magic Quadrant feedback, which is, here's the three suppliers you can look at, but if you just looked at the Magic Quadrant, you'd see the top three are in the upper right. It's not hard to do, right? Whereas, companies like ours are much more deep, wide in contact center practice technology. I mean, I literally spend half my day as the CEO, talking to suppliers and understanding their infrastructure and stack, and then, understanding their financial models and, whether they're a good fit to actually bring into the portfolio. Because when I bring a supplier on, I have to worry about my gurus, my consultants who are out there, and their reputation. I have to worry about our clients buying it. Are they going to stick around? Is it a good product? Why is it good? What's the differentiators? And of course, our general community. And because we're so focused, we also have other larger TSDs that use our portfolio as well. So I have a lot of people writing on, making sure we select the right ones. So clients sometimes know to come and look and find people like us. So we've got a great brand reputation. We protect it heavily. Our it's this is a niche, and although it's huge, it's also very small. All right, the word gets around pretty fast if you can't deliver on what you promise. So, and then we have to also teach them and coach them sometimes. So.
Do you find that the suppliers ever oversell their offering or try to fib to get in?
Somebody oversell? No, never. Salespeople never do. Yeah, all the time, man. Um, Especially over the last couple of years. I mean, it was bad before. People would, oversell products, services, overpromise and underdeliver, right? Now with artificial intelligence in particular, it is a rush for a lot of these companies to show growth. And this is, I mean, I can't blame the PE and VC world, but quite frankly, they've been pushing a lot of people, and that culture of, hey, let's damn everything and grow, right? That's still sticking around. It's still lingering. Now, I will admit, they're getting better, accepting services revenue as a almost necessary piece of growing a SaaS company in our field. They're getting better at this and recognizing that, you shouldn't be targeting growth at any cost. But there's still some of that out there, right? So these new AI companies, they're building wrappers on top of all the big models, right? And they're trying to come to market and capture as much as they can so that they can go get their next round of funding. They're still not trying to rush to profitability. Um, Although I think, just where generative and the new models are heading, I think we're seeing a little bit of a shift there where people are actually less interested in taking money. So it's fascinating times. But yeah, I mean, we see it all the time. You can just buy us and it'll plug in and it'll ingest all your data and understand your world. And you don't need to get prepared for artificial intelligence. It's like, I understand why the buyers, though. This is why a company like us exists, right? So many companies don't know. They don't know. They're running a center, 18 hours a day, putting out fires, human resources fires, customer fires. They don't have a clue who's out there, who's doing what. So somebody builds some trust, as a shiny new penny, that they get real jazzed about, makes them an offer they can't refuse. They buy the product. 6 months later, they still haven't deployed, still haven't seen their ROI. And then they're out there in the market trying to shop again. So we get a lot of people coming to us when they've already had that pain and they realized, oh crap, we really shouldn't be doing this on our own. So.
What is your strategy for vetting suppliers?
So, because again, my history gives me so many advantages running centers, being on the software side, understanding, how you structure how you spend, what good product, what good UX UI looks like, what good infrastructure is, understanding, the models. I have to spend a lot of my time staying up to date with, the changes in the models, where we're heading, and then use that intuitive, all that time and knowledge to think through, where does this product fit? Is this company, I have to dive down under the hood post NDA and, understand their, have they taken funding? Where are they at? What's their path to profitability if they're not already there? How many clients, how much revenue? All the things that kind of give you those little indicators of, can you believe their marketing spend? Um, and then being very candid. And most of the people, that I get into, they hear my story and they know that I'm going to ask, hard questions. And so for me, it just, the strategy is ask a lot of questions and listen. And most people, they'll show you exactly who you are if you're just willing to listen. So that's what I do a lot, is listen, ask a lot of smart questions, and let them kind of show me who they are.
Is that typical that a CEO would be doing the vetting?
No. No, that's not normal. No, usually you have a whole product team that does their vetting, and they have it their own ways, and you have teams of engineers and, business people. So no, that's not normal. I mean, but we're not normal anyways. My CRO is out there doing business development all the time. We're still, like I said before, this is bootstrapped, even though I swore I'd never do it again. We are bootstrapped. So, yeah,
Got to do what you got to do. Scramble, find holes, fill them.
do the work. I mean, again, it goes back to the hay needs baled. You need to stack it on the rack. You need to put it in the barn. I mean, this work needs to be done, and it needs to be done really well, right? I mean, early stage, especially in a, it's not even an industry. It's more like in a practice like contact center and customer experience. You got to do everything to protect your brand. So that means doing the hard work sometimes yourself, and then figuring out what you can offload, and how to pass the baton to the right people and give them the ability to take it and run with it.
How do you find, or what's your vetting process for your gurus, the consultants out with the clients? Are you doing most of that hiring yourself, and what are you looking for?
They usually find us, or we find them. The great consultants that really understand contact center practices. We all kind of run in same circles, right? It's not hard to figure out, what someone's history, what they've delivered. With our network, there isn't too many people in this industry that has any real depth and experience that we can't call somebody up that knows them directly. So it's a matter of understanding their practice, where they fit, how they do business. Um, and then they're still understanding, our gurus are 1099, so they have their own consulting practice. They have their business to run. So I'm not telling them how to run their business. I'm just giving them a vehicle to create a MRR model into a consultant's company, that allows them to actually grow and scale. I mean, historically, most consultants don't last very long in our industry before they have to go get a W-2 again. Yeah, it's just, consultants are great at what they do. Yeah, but they're not necessarily always business development people. They're not necessarily the best at creating a scalable or sustainable business. They're really good at operational practices, or really good at WFM, or really good, at understanding and selecting CCAS solutions. So it's kind of the perfect world where we're able to help them, teach them how to fish. And at the same time, they're doing amazing work working with the clients, building building the RFP, the BRD, whatever the client needs, and really helping them select the right product to solve their problem. So it's the perfect world.
What is the company structure currently? You have a few C-level, and you got the gurus. Is there any other people involved in building?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Under the hood, executive assistants. There's a product a person, but very, very flat, man. We are staying as lean as possible to stay bootstrapped as long as possible.
Yeah, makes sense. And then in terms of AI, I definitely want to get to kind of how it's going to impact call centers, and there's a lot of conversation around that. Just
Yeah.
in your internal business at Cloud Tech, how are you leveraging the new models? Or is anything changing on your end, or are you just telling customers to, hold your breath? It's not there yet. Let's figure out how to set the foundation for when.
We all use it every single day. So we're trying to figure out right now, we're in the process of trying to figure out to consolidate down to one or two models. So we're a Google shop, so it only makes sense that, we're testing right now with Gemini and some of their new models where you can, you can be a little more team oriented. And of course, because, we're a Google shop, all of our stuff is integrated, right? We also we tested with Perplexity. Darren still uses OpenAI quite a bit, ChatGPT, some of their new models. I like Grok. We use it for research. We use it for, helping with writing, content information. We still write a lot of stuff. We just use it to make the writing better, right? Make the content a little bit better, more consumable. I mean, I myself, I write like I talk, so that doesn't always necessarily make for great, let's say, marketing content, right? And so, we use it in that way today internally, and starting to look at some automation pieces. Now, as far as in contact centers, there's, I mean, we've got 50 different categories of contact center related technology, and at least three-quarters of them today are impacted by artificial intelligence in one way or another. So the what we're recommending as far as the models go, nobody, unless you're a development shop, or you're a company that has a development shop in house. We don't recommend building your own right now. You can bring in experts to build your own. And it's called, a PLLM, private large language model, or mid-size, medium, or small models. But you can build in house. Just don't do it yourself unless you've got the resources, and the internal teams to do it. And then everything else is about product point solutions. Those are depending on what the client needs. There are clearly solutions out there today, that are already delivering ROI pretty quickly. Even without all my talk about AI readiness, there are some things that are very that are almost like new versions. Like I'll give you an example. Voice analytics has been around for a long time. To be able to listen to a recording, uh, you know, pull the transcript, analyze the transcript, and then give you, data and insights. So that's been around for quite a while. Just the new iterations are actually available in even live transcripts, which then leads to like agent assist and guidance. And this is where agentive starts to come in, and really have its power is, moving data, doing actions on the back end automatically just based upon listening to a conversation. So what we recommend to clients is, first understand where you're at. Really, you've got to know, what is your blueprint, so to say, as somebody recently called it. And I like that term because, you need to understand where you're at today. in order to understand where you can go. And then talk about their outcomes. What are they looking to solve for? What are their real pain points? And then that brings in various different solutions. Now, sometimes boards are and C-level are just telling the VP of contact centers or the chief experience officer, just go get artificial intelligence. And that's when they get themselves into trouble. Is they're like, well, I heard from a buddy that agent assist works really well, so let's go do that. Whether they know they're ready for it or not, or more often than not, a lot of it's conversational bot technology, because that is clearly if you can automate something talking to the humans when they call in for or chat or whatever, um, that drops a lot of money to the bottom line because that's human resources that you're going to be able to remove those costs eventually. So that seems to be the one that everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon and get to. And eh, some of it's there. Legitimately, the technologies that we've got in the portfolio, the latency between when you ask a question and when it answers, the accuracy in which it answers, the human-like sound in which it answers, even the faking of empathy,
Yeah.
which still I'm a little I've got my opinions on some of that stuff. But that's all getting there to where I mean, there are environments now that are we call it deflection. Basically the system handles 90+% of the conversations. So it is realistic. It is there. Now, is that the right thing to do though? That's a different question. You're from Silicon Valley, so I mean, you did you ever hear about Klarna and their announcements around AI?
I know of Klarna. I don't think I know what you're referencing.
So they put out an article maybe a year ago. I'd have to look on the timeline. I might be wrong. Somebody might correct me on that. But about a year ago, I think it was, they put out an article saying they were completely replacing all of their agents with artificial intelligence. And they or 70%. It was a huge percentage, right? They were the first, decent sized company to come out and say, we're doing it. And then they put out another press release where they were going to completely replace Salesforce and Monday.com because artificial intelligence it could replace those technologies, right? And I think it was like 2 months ago they put out an article saying, "Whoops, we need to bring some humans back in." So and they didn't say it that way. I mean, they of course tried to put their spin on it, but in reality, they're like, "Oh crap, our experience went down." So we're still trying to figure out how many of a company's customers really are willing to talk to a bot and why, and trying to find that balance between automation and AI and human to create the right experience. And I think it'll be different for every company, just like the customer experience practice is different for every company, right? um, and it's dependent on clients and their willingness to adopt new technology and self-service and yeah, yada yada. So I think we'll land somewhere around 70% is what I've from what I've seen, we'll still need to have quite a few interactions by humans.
You think that 30% will end up being really high skilled
Oh yeah.
service people, and then obviously the easier issues are easily solved. So all you need is
Yeah, and in reality with agentive, the perfect world is that it's solved without even you as the consumer knowing. So it recognizes that there was a mistake and, through automation is able to resolve it one way or another. But yeah, I mean the 30%, they will be high EQ. They'll be able to do a lot of research and manage very complex and difficult situations. So and I mean we're already seeing that where automation is taking the I mean even before LLMs came onto the market, we were already seeing 10% of calls and chats being handled through automation. Simple FAQs, right? You could do a simple map. If somebody asks this question in this types of variations of words, go here and answer this. So it's yeah, I mean, it's going to get the stuff that makes it through to the agent are going to keep getting more and more complex, more and more difficult, and that means it'll be higher pay, better quality. You know, um, they'll still have a bunch of tools though. They'll still have automated agent guidance, and a lot of the stuff on the back end will be automated, so they can really focus on the customer. That really should be their only goal is, let me make sure I get this resolved one way or another. Now, that doesn't mean always saying yes when the customer's wrong. It means that they're providing the best possible experience they can based upon the situation. So,
With AI, there's been so many uh false announcements or just too early excitement, and I think everyone thought that blue collar would be first, and it's obviously not. I don't think any robots coming to change your switchboard or electrical box. And now everyone, I think, initially thought definitely call center, definitely customer service. And do you feel that you are going to be fairly early on in the adoption of or most impact of AI, or you feel like there's other industries that are going to be more impacted by these models improving?
yeah. So, I mean, we are definitely the tip of the spear as far as I'm concerned. There's other places like research and analysts and things like that are going to go pretty quick, as these models get more and more efficient. Especially these reasoning models. The improvements are just amazing. There'll be some things like, executive assistants, legal aids, things that we used to just kind of take for granted that you would always need a team of a bunch of humans. Um, those are going to be on the top of the list. But with the contact center, the advantage we have is, first of all, like I said before, NLU, NLP, text to speech, speech to text, automations. This is nothing new for us. We've been a KPI driven part of, a division in any company for forever. First time I ever heard the words KPI were long before I heard it written or read it written in a book, was within a call center. So we've been tracking, all the answer rates, talk times, wrap up times. It's been a data driven model ever since I got into it, ever since we became computerized. So for us, it's just a natural progression. It's very easy for us to look at these things and say, okay, that's the next iteration. So I think the contact center and customer experience is the tip of the spear. But it's not. What people fail to realize is 30% of the Fortune 500 are still running premise-based telephony. Well, why does that matter? I mean, old data architectures, no APIs. If they do have APIs, it's because they duct taped and bubble gummed, some stuff to get that data out and make it accessible. But then the data is not normalized or structured in a way that any modern system would expect. And then the recordings, in the old days, everything was 8-bit mono, so meaning a single path. So you and I would be our recording, even on your platform that you use, it's dual voice paths, right? So it knows what my voice path is and what yours is. So you can edit and you can analyze and understand, and that makes the accuracy significantly better. Whereas with the old stuff, we have to do something called diarization, which is splitting those voice paths and trying to guess the best you can who is who. And then you do the analyzation, right? So in order to get a company to the next iteration, where we should be, there's still a ton of work to do. I mean, we're still, very disjointed. Omnichannel's been around forever. Still a lot of companies that are not running omnichannel. They're running multi-channel at best, or maybe a couple of channels. And when I say channels, I mean like voice, chat, SMS,
Hmm.
social media, WhatsApp, et cetera, right? Um, So yeah, I mean, I'd say we are absolutely the tip of the spear, but it takes work. It takes time. This stuff is not auto magic. It's not the way this works.
Hmm.
You know, you can ingest a lot of data and learn, but I mean, even on tools like conversational analytics, it takes time, you know, to get it deployed. But that's an easy one. Again, we've been using voice analytics forever, so migrating to conversational analytics, you know, to all the other channels is relatively easy. Um, you know, but yeah, to get to true that 70% automation across the board, you know, it's going to take a little while. But it's moving fast.
Yeah.
You know, so unlike any other industrial revolution, and I've spent a lot of time, I like to look back in history to tell us, you know, to give us some ideas, you know, of where the future might be heading. Every other industrial revolution was over, you know, decades, right? This one, this is not a, you know, at most decade one, you know, and what we're seeing in the changes in our industry, so we're talking maybe 5 years, yeah, five-ish. No one's ever seen that type of change at this speed. We just haven't. You know, and that's where the fear comes in.
Yeah.
Doesn't help that Hollywood's talked about AI killing us forever, but you know, there is legitimate reason to be afraid, and you know, no one's still really answered the question about AGI or you know, I mean, we still aren't there yet, and the acceleration at that point, who knows?
Hoping for the
But
best.
what's that?
Just hoping for the best.
Right?
I hope it turns
Um,
out okay.
a techno optimist, man.
Same.
You know,
Yeah. You
I
have to
think
be.
I think it will. You know, I think there will be a lot of pains, though. I mean, you know, a lot of people have stopped talking about UBI, which I find, I think that was an important conversation.
Yeah.
I really do, and I think it'll have to come back up here soon. But there's a lot of other chaos in the world right at this moment, so
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. If you had to put all your chips in one company that you see as developing a very useful product, not necessarily changing the world, but if you were a VC, what AI product company is most impressive to you currently?
That's a tough one. Mm. See, here's my problem. I being an entrepreneur, I love an underdog story and I love the startup discussions. But if I had to pick just one company to put my money into, um, I'd probably, at this point in time, and there are a lot of people in certain leaning that'll probably hate this answer, but I would put my money in X now that X and XAI are together. If I was to say anybody that I could put my money into right now, especially right now with the markets being down as far and valuations being what they are right now, I'd say that's where I'd put it. And that's
I wouldn't
because
disagree.
Optimus, well, Optimus is technically Tesla, right? So, but I'm already invested in them. You know, if I could put my money in them or SpaceX, you know, quite frankly, man, you know, the move to being a multiplanetary, you know, civilization is it's yeah, there's some interesting thoughts about that, and they are clearly in the lead. You want to talk about a market share dominance? I mean, my gosh, I think I heard like 96% of all you know, all the weight going out into orbit is through them. It's insane.
I got the Starship on my shelf. I'm a big fan. I watch all the launches live, and it's just on the edge of my seat still. Um, Taking a step back, well, anything else you wanted to kind of talk about cloud tech? Anything you want to kind of throw out there?
No, no. I mean, obviously, you know, I can be found anywhere. So, always happy to talk. You can tell I'm passionate about this stuff. This is all I've done. I don't know that I'll ever really exit the customer experience space. Now, contact centers and CX are different. Although every contact center is part of the experience, not every you know, not all of CX is contact center, right? So I've kind of grown into more of a you know, CX person over the years. But anyways, you know, I'm always open for a chat.
Very cool. taking a step back here, more broad, big questions. The podcast is called Peaking. There's a variety of meanings there. What has been your greatest achievement so far?
Mm. Greatest professional, to be clear, my kids being amazing adults, I think is my greatest achievement ever.
Nice.
Yeah, so,
That's the right answer.
but professionally, um, not there yet. I'm not done.
Yeah,
I,
it's
I'm
peaking,
not
you
great.
know, it's not peaked, you know.
Right. It's peaking. You never stop, period. I'm far from done. Yeah, so I've had a lot of great experiences. Learn a ton every day. That's it's really, yeah, like you said, peaking, man. I mean, it's about the journey. So not done yet.
What's the most fun you've ever had? What were you doing?
Right now. Uh,
It's peaking.
you know, I'm having a blast. I get to work with cutting edge technology. I get to spend time talking to builders, both on the operational side and the technical side in the suppliers. I get to work with amazing consultants and companies that have all kinds of challenges. I mean, I am smack dab in the middle of a revolutionary change in technology and the way we approach customer experience. I am having so much fun right now. It's a lot of work, man, but I mean that's why, you know, working weekends and nights and traveling and doing the stuff we do is, yeah, I can continue to do it with so much energy is because, I love it. So much fun.
What do you like to do outside of work?
I like to strength train, lift weights.
Is that
Uh,
powerlifting, traditional bodybuilding?
I go through, I told you I have a 5 day routine. I do a bro split because I've tried push pull legs, a million different variations. Um, I will never do CrossFit, just to be clear. All you
Keeps PTs in
CrossFitters.
business.
Yeah. And other than that, ride my motorcycle, spend time with family, friends. So outside of work, really lift, ride, occasional hikes. You can't be in Colorado and not occasionally get out and walk in the mountains, right? Get a little grounded. Um, yeah,
What
I enjoy it.
kind of motorcycle do you have?
I have a Harley.
Cool. I really want one. My dad rode across the United States on his Harley as I think in college, and that was one of my college bucket list items as well, and I never did it. And I think I'd
Highly
enjoy that.
recommend. I have a specialty one that was it's called a night rod. I've got the 10th anniversary, but it's a Porsche designed engine on a Harley chassis that's really unique looking. It's nothing like any other Harley. Probably the closest is if you're familiar with like the breakouts. But they're very much, shorter distance. If you're gonna ride across the country, highly recommend finding a bagger.
Yeah, touring one.
An older touring bike, um, just a suggestion, but my bike, I definitely, to about 2 hours, I'm done. I'm
Yeah.
cooked, you
How many
know,
times have you been to Sturgis?
never,
Wow.
never
Any
once.
interest?
Um, Not really. No, I'm not that's not my thing, right?
Yeah. That's
I'd
that's
be
the
more
culture.
likely. I'd be more likely to ride my Harley down to Vegas for like a trade show or a conference just to make it interesting than I would to go to Sturgis. I mean, I've had a lot of buddies that are, that ride all the time. They go to Sturgis all the time. All of them, the older guys are kind of stopping though, going because the culture has changed. Not quite what it
It
used to
always
be.
does.
Always does, man. Always does. It's
How
the
does
only
AI impact Sturgis?
Well, we might have to think about that one for a little bit. Autonomous bikes. I mean, that yeah, I can't imagine. They're actually making automatic bikes now. So that I can't even imagine that. I mean,
Oh, I
what's the
haven't
point of
seen
riding
that.
a bike if you're not shifting, through the gears yourself? I don't know. Anyways,
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, really appreciate you coming on. Where can people find you?
Best place is LinkedIn. Just look up my name. Not hard to find. The picture might be a little outdated. I think I need a new headshot.
New headshot. Get on it.
But other
AI
than that,
headshots.
my partner, our CRO, did that. I just struggle with those, man. I
Yeah, I
look
don't
at them
like
and
them.
I know right away which ones are AI, and especially if you know the person, it's like, come on, man, that doesn't even look like you.
You suddenly lift. You suddenly have a jawline.
Happen. But your head's about 2 inches longer. I don't understand. Where'd you get muscles? I don't see it. No.
Good stuff. All right.
Well,
Fred Stacey, CEO of Cloud Tech Gurus. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for peeking.
yeah, thank you for having me, man. Appreciate it.